Wednesday the 17th of August, 2016. The City of London was still wrapped in the grey haze of dawn. It was just after 5:00 in the morning, the hour when the streets are at their quietest. But outside a small, unassuming pub in Manor Park, the silence was heavy with anticipation. Officers from the Met's organised vehicle crime unit sat in unmarked cars, watching and waiting. For weeks, they had been tracking a phantom pattern that plagued the city's affluent suburbs, luxury cars disappearing from driveways as if they had evaporated into thin air. By the time owners woke up to find their driveways empty, those vehicles were often already sitting in a storage unit just 200 meters away from this very pub, stripped down to their engines. There were no alarms, no smashed glass, and no signs of how they were taken. But that morning, the police were ready to tear down the veil of secrecy. What began as a local investigation was about to uncover a criminal chain stretching far beyond London, to a quiet storage unit in Essex and workshops in West London. This is the story of three massive police operations that fundamentally changed the way British police hunted organised car thieves, and how one morning search exposed them all. Welcome to Crime Lens. Let us get straight into the case. Between 2015 and 2016, a highly organised car theft network operated across East London, with a level of discipline that baffled local law enforcement. Police later compared their precision to the Hollywood film Gone in 60 Seconds, but this was not fiction. At the centre of this web was Manjit Sandu, a 32-year-old ringleader from Newham. Sandu was no amateur. He was already serving a suspended sentence for a similar offence. Instead of being deterred, he had used his time to refine his craft, building an operation that was larger, more calculated, and designed to exploit one specific weakness in London's most affluent suburbs: the homeowners' misplaced trust that their car keys were safe inside their own hallways. Sandu ran his team like a corporate unit. His closest associate, Hina Bucks, just 21 at the time, acted as the logistics manager, identifying target vehicles and coordinating the pickups. Investigators later uncovered a stream of messages between her and Sandu, arranging meeting points with the casual tone of business partners planning a lunch. The muscle of the operation, though they rarely needed to use force, were Khurram Zaman and Muhammad Islam. They handled the physical entries. But they did not kick down doors, they exploited a simple mechanical flaw. Most jobs took place between 2:00 am and 5:00 am, operating under the cover of deep night. Using a screwdriver or a flat, plastic door card, they would target UPVC doors. These are the standard white plastic doors found on millions of British homes. Most homeowners believe that lifting the handle locks the door. In reality, unless the key is fully turned in the cylinder, the locking mechanism remains vulnerable. With a simple slide of plastic, the latch slips, and the door opens silently. Once inside, the thieves did not wander or rummage. They moved with military precision, knowing exactly where human nature dictates we leave our keys: hallway tables, kitchen counters, and hooks by the door. Within minutes, often while the family slept directly upstairs, the thieves were back outside. Headlights would flash once, and the car would disappear into the quiet streets. But Sandu's crew did not always rely on slipping locks. When the doors were bolted tight, they had another way in, one that did not leave a single scratch on the paintwork and rendered modern car security useless. But Sandu's crew did not always rely on break-ins. When the doors were locked tight, they had another way in, one that did not need a single scratch on the paintwork. Victims often woke to silence. No broken glass, no sign of forced entry, only an empty driveway. The missing vehicles were not random. They were Range Rovers, BMWs, Mercedes and Jaguars, the kind of models worth tens of thousands, even when broken down for parts. The operation relied on speed, but the true secret to their success was not force, it was technology. This network's edge came from equipment, usually reserved for legitimate professionals: professional-grade key programming devices, blank transponder keys, and virgin fobs. These were items legitimate locksmiths used to help stranded drivers, repurposed here to defeat sophisticated vehicle security. The process was terrifyingly fast. Once inside a vehicle, or sometimes even from outside using signal extenders, the gang would access the car's onboard diagnostics OBD port. This is the computer interface mechanics use to check engine faults. By plugging a laptop or a handheld programmer into this port, they could instruct the car's computer to forget the old keys and accept a new blank key they had brought with them. Prosecutors told the court these devices allowed the gang to bypass, manufacture immobilizers, and start the engine in seconds. A theft that once required hot wiring and noise could now be done in the time it takes to send a text message. Once the engine was running, the next challenge was moving a high-profile stolen car through the most surveillance-heavy city in the world without drawing attention. Sandu had a solution for that too. The gang used an operational cover that was deliberately low-key and brilliant in its simplicity. They disguised the stolen luxury cars as private hire minicabs. They slapped counterfeit transport for London private hire stickers on the windows. In the dead of night, a black BMW or a silver Mercedes with a private hire sticker is effectively invisible. It blends into the background of the city, looking like just another Uber or local cab, taking a passenger home or heading to the airport. This camouflage allowed stolen cars to sit in traffic, travel through police checkpoints, and pass as ordinary late-night journeys. It was a vital move to minimize attention during the critical movement from the street to the safe house, or from a holding site to a dismantling location. Behind this tactical precision was a robust financial structure. While Sandu and his associates Jeffrey Carr, Sufyan Mahmood, and Hinabux handled the logistics of theft and transport, the money needed a place to go. The group's financial link was Sandu's girlfriend, Tessa Penalva. Though she was officially unemployed and receiving state benefits, her bank accounts were washing the gang's dirty money. We will delve deeper into her specific sentencing later, but effectively, she was the bank. Profits from cars sold overseas or stripped for parts were laundered back through her, turning criminal proceeds into usable cash. By the time detectives began connecting the dots, the gang had built a self-sustaining cycle. Cars were stolen to order, moved invisibly through the city, and either exported to Africa and Eastern Europe, or stripped for parts in secure yards. It looked like a series of isolated burglaries across East London, but in reality, it was a single network run with business-like discipline. Over a 17-month period, police linked the group to more than 120 stolen vehicles worth close to £3 million. But even the most disciplined criminals make mistakes, and for Sandu, the mistake was assuming that the police were not watching the patterns forming in the data. By mid-2016, detectives in the Metropolitan Police's Organised Vehicle Crime Unit began to see something that did not add up. Dozens of burglary reports were surfacing across East and West London, all involving the same brands of luxury cars, Range Rovers, BMWs, Mercedes. But it was not just the frequency, it was the geography. Each incident followed an identical pattern, and when stolen cars began reappearing replated, disguised, or partially stripped, the team realized this was not a series of isolated thefts, it was a coordinated system. Analysts started cross-checking automatic number plate recognition (ANPR) data from across London. ANPR cameras are the silent watchers of the UK road network, logging millions of journeys a day. That is when the first anomaly appeared. The same number plate was logged twice on different cars in two separate boroughs within minutes of each other. Physically, it was impossible for one car to be in both places. It was not a simple clerical error. It was evidence of a professional network using cloned plates to move vehicles rapidly through the city. With a pattern established, the Met turned its attention to known offenders. Among the names that surfaced repeatedly was Manjit Sandu. Officers began surveillance on his movements, and those of his close associates, including Hinabux and Faisal Khan. Tracker devices were quietly fitted to vehicles connected to the suspects. Within days, investigators saw consistent nighttime routes between Forest Gate, Leytonstone, Hornchurch, and Manor Park. The paths all converged near a single address, a pub called the Blakesley Arms. This was not just a random meeting spot. The pub was run by Sandu's own father. It was the perfect cover, a legitimate business with a constant flow of people, where cars coming and going would not look out of place. The surveillance confirmed enough to act. In response, the Met launched Operation Brass Hand, a full-scale investigation into organised car theft and export networks across London. What began as a handful of suspicious burglaries was now pointing toward a multi-million-pound enterprise and a ringleader hiding in plain sight. On Wednesday the 17th of August 2016, just after dawn, the trap was sprung. teams from the Metropolitan Police assembled outside the Blakesley Arms pub in Manor Park. To the public, it was a quiet, family-run business. But when officers forced entry into the basement, what they found confirmed months of investigation. As inside were bags filled with car keys, blank key fobs, key programming devices, and specialist lock-picking tools, everything needed to clone, start and move a keyless vehicle within minutes. Some of the devices were traced to suppliers that normally sold only to licensed locksmiths and dealerships, a clear sign of how far the gang had gone to appear legitimate. Upstairs, the bar still looked like it had closed for the night. Beer mats on tables, glasses stacked behind the counter, nothing out of place. But the physical evidence in the basement was only half the story. The digital evidence sealed the case, and some of it came from the criminals' own carelessness. One of the stolen BMWs had been fitted with a dashcam that the thieves failed to disable. When officers recovered the footage, it showed Sandu's men climbing into the car, completely unaware they were being filmed, their faces clear as day. Another piece of footage, this time from a McDonald's drive-through CCTV camera, showed Sufyan Mahmood and Hinabux in a stolen vehicle ordering food, casually smiling at the window. They were so comfortable, so confident in their private hire disguise, that they did not even try to hide. Even more incriminating was Sandu's own CCTV system at his Hornchurch home. Detectives found recordings of him leaving his property in the early hours, often returning just before sunrise, matching the time frames of multiple thefts perfectly. By mid-morning, Sandu had gone into hiding, but with the evidence stacked against him, the tools, the tracking data, and the video footage, his arrest was only a matter of time. Operation Brass Hand had exposed the full scale of a network that had stolen over £3 million worth of luxury cars. But the legal reckoning that followed would reveal just how deep the rot went. In March 2017, the case finally reached Suffolk Crown Court. 8 core members of the gang stood before the judge, their operation stripped bare by the evidence gathered during Operation Brass Hand. The hearings revealed shocking details about the group's internal workings, particularly the financial engine that kept them running. Tessa Penalva, Sandu's girlfriend, faced separate proceedings after evidence showed she had laundered more than £118,000 in criminal earnings through her bank account. Despite being unemployed, huge sums flowed through her hands. Most damningly, records showed she had paid the companies that supplied the locksmith tools and key programming devices, purchases now known to be the very instruments used to steal millions of pounds worth of vehicles. Detective Inspector Caroline Clooney, who led the Met's Organised Vehicle Crime Unit, addressed the court and the public. She did not just talk about the monetary value, she spoke of the violation. They brought distress to every household they touched, she said. Not only the loss of property, but the fear of knowing someone was in their home while they slept. She used the moment to issue a crucial public warning, highlighting the simple security flaw that Sandu's men had exploited so ruthlessly. Almost all of the houses burgled had UPVC doors that were not double-locked. I urge every homeowner, lift the handle, but also use the key. Without that, the door can be opened in seconds. The sentences handed down reflected the scale of the crime. Manjit Sandu received the longest term, 12 years in prison. His logistics manager, Hinabux, was jailed for 9 years and 6 months. The rest of the crew faced significant time. Sufyan Mahmood got 7 years and 6 months. Faisal Khan and Kuram Zaman were each given 4 years and 6 months. Muhammad Islam received 3 years, and Jeffrey Kaholai Katirinkai 6 months. The final member, Hamza Pariwala, received 18 months. Reports suggest Penalva was convicted in 2018 for converting criminal property, though her exact sentence was not publicly disclosed. In total, the gang received more than 46 years combined. The Sandu network was dismantled. But crime, like nature, abhors a vacuum. Years passed, and while the streets of East London quieted down, a new, even more sophisticated operation was growing. This time, the centre of gravity was not a pub in the city. It was the quiet, rolling fields of Essex. By early 2024, Essex police were tracking a new network, one that appeared far more structured than a typical car theft ring. At its head was Wade Youssef, a 29-year-old from Ilford. Investigators would later describe him as the CEO of a criminal enterprise. He was the man who decided which vehicles to steal, where they should be taken, and how the parts would be moved. Beneath him was a disciplined hierarchy that operated with corporate efficiency. Mohammed Bukhari from Luton managed logistics and cash flow, arranging payments for shipments, tools, and labor. Stanley Vanderberg acted as the transporter, the man responsible for moving the product from the street to the processing plant. And they had a dedicated dismantling team: David Nakashidze, George Abshandadze, Revers Mumladze, and Lucas Muskoskas, men who specialized in stripping high-value vehicles down to their core components in record time. Their target list was exclusive. Range Rovers, Jaguars, Land Rovers, and BMWs vehicles were stolen from across Essex, Hertfordshire, Devon, and Southampton. But they all headed to the same destination. It was not a hidden warehouse in an industrial estate. It was a rural property in Little Bardfield, near Finchingfield. To the outside world, it looked like a quiet farm storage barn, surrounded by hedgerows and machinery. But behind the corrugated metal walls, Youssef had built a factory of theft. It would not be long before a single tip-off would expose what was happening behind those barn doors, and unravel a network that stretched far beyond the Essex countryside. It all began when investigators noticed a pattern in the data that was eerily similar to the Sandu case years prior. But with a new geographical twist. Several luxury vehicles stolen from across the south of England were all last seen travelling in the direction of rural North Essex. One name kept appearing in automatic number plate recognition logs and surveillance notes: Little Bardfield near Finchingfield. To anyone driving past, the rented unit there looked like nothing more than a quiet farm storage barn, a low, corrugated building surrounded by hedgerows, old machinery, and the silence of the fields. It was the perfect camouflage. Criminals often rely on the anonymity of the city, but Youssef's gang bet on the isolation of the countryside. But as detectives would later learn, at night, the site came to life, with industrial intensity. Large vehicles arrived under cover of darkness. Car transporters and recovery trucks, carrying new or nearly new models that had vanished from driveways across Essex, Hertfordshire, and Devon, would rumble down the narrow country lanes. Each car was driven straight inside the unit, and the heavy doors were immediately closed behind them. Inside, the rural silence was replaced by the mechanical sounds of dismantling. The breakthrough came from a sharp-eyed witness. They grew suspicious after seeing large, expensive cars entering the farm unit, vehicles that seemed out of place in such a rugged setting. But it was one specific detail that turned suspicion into alarm. The witness spotted a Land Rover Discovery inside the barn. Through the window, they could see children's car seats and personal belongings still scattered on the back seats. It was a haunting image, a family vehicle, likely stolen just hours before, sitting in a criminal workshop with the traces of innocent lives still inside. They reported it to the police. That single observation shifted the investigation into high gear. Detectives obtained a warrant to install covert cameras around the property. For the next 115 days, the police watched. They recorded activity inside and outside the barn, gathering a mountain of undeniable evidence. In clips later shown in court, gang members were seen methodically stripping high-end cars down to bare shells. It was not chaotic, it was a production line. The footage revealed a grim efficiency. As soon as a car arrived, the team: David Nakashidze, George Abshandadze, Revers Mumladze, and Lucas Muskoskas went to work. Doors were unbolted, engines hoisted out, dashboards removed. The vehicle identification numbers, VINs, the unique fingerprints of every car, were ground away to erase the vehicle's history. Components were neatly stacked and tagged. This was not a backstreet garage improvising with stolen cars. It was a factory designed for maximum profit and minimal traceability. By May 2024, the investigation had entered its most crucial phase. Detectives from Essex Police's Serious and Organised Crime Directorate, supported by the Stolen Vehicle Intelligence Unit, were following a new trail. The barn was just the processing plant. The question remained, where were all these engines and body panels going? The answer lay waiting at the docks of the Thames, inside a steel container destined for a continent away. Intelligence gathered from phone data and freight records pointed towards a specific shipping container sitting at London Gateway Port, a massive industrial hub on the banks of the Thames. It was scheduled for imminent departure to West Africa. To the port authorities, the manifest looked standard: personal effects, household goods, perhaps someone moving abroad. But the detectives knew better. When officers arrived to intercept the shipment, they were not looking for sofas or wardrobes. When the heavy steel doors of the containers swung open, the sheer audacity of the operation was revealed. At first glance, it looked like a legitimate move. Old mattresses, chairs, and boxes were stacked near the front. It was a Trojan horse tactic, a layer of junk, designed to bore a customs inspector into closing the doors. But as officers climbed over the furniture, the glint of metal shone through the gloom. Hidden deep inside the container were 2 Range Rovers and a Toyota Land Cruiser, squeezed in with barely an inch to spare. Together, the 3 vehicles were worth more than £80,000. All had been reported, stolen, 2 from London, 1 from Essex. But they did not look stolen. They wore fresh registration plates, cloned from legitimate vehicles, designed to mask their true identity. This seizure was the smoking gun. It confirmed that the Little Bardfield barn was not just a local chop shop. It was a feeder site for an international pipeline. The gang was stealing cars in the UK and fulfilling orders for buyers in Africa and the Middle East, moving stolen property across borders under the guise of legitimate commerce. Simultaneously, the investigation widened. Information obtained during the surveillance of the Little Bardfield barn led officers to uncover a second chop shop in Western Essex. Inside, they found the skeletal remains of 4 more stolen vehicles. The coordination between these dismantling sites and the export hubs revealed a level of sophistication that rivaled legitimate logistics companies. Every element, from the theft to the shipping, had been engineered to make the vehicles vanish beyond trace. When officers finally stepped inside the Little Bardfield unit to secure the site, what they found looked less like a criminal den and more like a specialized laboratory. Cars stood in rows, each at a precise stage of disassembly. Some were reduced to bare metal frames, others were stripped of doors, dashboards, and engines. The gang had been thorough. Vehicle identification numbers, VINs, had been ground away, while components were neatly stacked and tagged for sorting. During the search, officers recovered a cache of high-tech equipment that explained how the gang operated with such impunity. There were signal jammers to block GPS trackers, ensuring the owners could not locate their cars once they were taken. There were relay attack devices, used to intercept the signal from a key fob inside a house and transmit it to the car on the driveway, tricking the vehicle into thinking the owner was standing right next to it. And perhaps most disturbingly, they found forged logbooks, the paperwork used to create a new, fake history for the stolen machines. Hidden towards the rear of the unit were 3 more large shipping containers. These were not empty. They were packed tight with dismantled parts, gearboxes, engines, and pristine body panels interspersed with more furniture to fool X-ray scanners. Shipping labels found on the crates listed destinations in the United Arab Emirates, with Dubai marked as the end point. The forensics teams worked through the night, cataloguing thousands of pounds of stolen metal. The evidence was overwhelming, and the time for surveillance was over. It was time to strike. At dawn on the 27th of June, 2024, months of surveillance and coordination came to a head. Teams from Essex and Kent Police's Serious Crime Directorate launched a series of simultaneous raids across 8 different addresses. The operation was planned down to the minute, designed to decapitate the entire organization in one sweep before anyone could destroy evidence or flee. In Ilford, officers surrounded a terraced property on Stanhope Gardens, the home of ringleader Wahed Youssef. Within minutes, the man who had orchestrated the theft of millions of pounds of vehicles was in custody. Simultaneously, in Luton, another team moved on Mohammed Bukhari's address on Connaught Road, seizing cash, documents, and the mobile phones that held the secrets of the gang's logistics. North of London in Borehamwood, detectives arrested the transporter, Stanley Vanderberg. The net was cast wide. Hundreds of miles away in Warwickshire, the 3 dismantlers, David Nakashidze, George Abshandadze, and Rivas Mumladze, were detained. The investigation continued to roll up the network through the summer. In August, a tracker signal from a stolen vehicle led officers to a property in Nazing, where they found Lucas Muskoskas working on yet another dismantled car. Finally, in September, the last piece of the puzzle, Michael Casey, was tracked down and arrested. When the case reached Chelmsford Crown Court in June 2024, the weight of the evidence was crushing. Wahed Youssef was jailed for 6 years and 1 month. His right-hand man, Bukhari, received 4 years and 7 months. The rest of the crew received significant custodial sentences, with the group's combined prison time amounting to 36 years and 4 months. While the Essex gang relied on a mix of logistics and brute dismantling, a different kind of threat had stalked the streets of West London years earlier. Between 2015 and 2017, the wealthy enclaves of Chelsea, Notting Hill and Maida Vale became the hunting ground for two of the most elusive car thieves the Met had ever pursued. Their names were Tariq Ali and Hakim Aziz. Police would later dub them the keyless duo. Unlike the gangs that broke into homes for keys, Ali and Aziz were ghosts. They did not need to enter a house. They brought the key with them digitally. Their targets were high-end vehicles parked on residential streets. Using sophisticated key programming devices, they could clone the electronic signal of a vehicle's key and create a working copy in less than a minute. They would simply walk up to a Range Rover, unlock it as if they owned it, start the engine and drive away. Over 2 years, more than 30 cars vanished, leaving victims baffled. There was no broken glass, no alarm, just an empty parking space. By late 2017, the Met's Organised Vehicle Crime Unit had traced multiple cloned registrations to the pair. On December 6, 2017, the police struck. At a property in Chelsea, they found the thieves, toolkit, blank vehicle keys, signal jammers, and tracking blockers. But a second property in Notting Hill revealed the true scale of their Vitaisona industry. It contained a laptop set up to produce 172 sets of false number plates, alongside forged logbooks and industrial printers. Forensic analysis showed that just 29 of those plates had already been used on stolen vehicles, worth over £1.25 million, though police believe the true total exceeded £6 million. In court, the digital evidence was irrefutable. Tariq Ali was sentenced to 6 years and Hakim Aziz to 4 years and 4 months. These three cases, the Sandu network, the Essex barn, and the keyless duo, paint a stark picture of the evolution of car crime. It is no longer about hot wiring and brute force. It is a world of signal jammers, cloned keys, international shipping containers, and organized hierarchies that rival legitimate corporations. What do you think about these cases and the sentences handed down? Were they enough to deter such sophisticated networks? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. We would love to hear your take. And if you found this breakdown informative, make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you do not miss the next episode of Crime Lens.